We had a poll in the last couple of weeks which shows that in this country, 92% of Conservative voters and 70% of Labour voters, which surprised me actually, believe we should be deporting people who glorify terrorism. We have a government that won't, though. So it is only a change of the political system that will eventually create this. But you're right. I mean, I think Douglas Murray and myself and many other people have been saying what I think needs to be said in this moment. Let's hope that translates into some kind of political change.
Now, let's be fair. You have seen some politicians at least try and find some solutions. They very, very quickly run into all sorts of problems, what might be called, broadly speaking, the new elites. Now, we always have to have leaders. We'll always have to have bureaucracies. We'll always have to have courts. But perhaps increasingly those positions have been peopled by individuals who don't have a great respect for the values of the broader community and will frustrate governments.
Well, I think the narrative among those people is that the people can't be trusted.
Yeah, that's what I'm driving at.
Yeah, the people can't be trusted. The people are suspect morally and ethically, and therefore to follow the wishes of the people is to engage in xenophobia and racism and prejudice, which, of course, is very silly. I think you probably find that among immigrant communities, support for legal immigration and enforcement of the border is actually quite high. I mean, I'm a first-generation immigrant. I don't see why my mother, as happened, who applied to come to Britain and visit her grandson, should be denied her visa application, and yet somebody can come and get in a boat and come to this country. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. So, yes, I think we interviewed a guy called Steve Hilton, who was a former advisor to David Cameron. I met him in a bar in Utah, and we went for a drink. It became 10 drinks, and the stories he was telling me about attempting to get things through the civil service, I mean, they make Yes Minister look like an understatement of what's going on. It really is. It seems to be very difficult to deliver on the commitments made by politicians to the electorate because people in the civil service seems to think they know better.
You did give some thoughts on how academics, business people who can see the problems might push back against wokeness. Can you elaborate a little on what you...
I hope by the time this interview goes out, people have seen the speech, because I won't be able to reproduce it with quite as much humor as I did there. But yes, I mean, for business people, I think we have to take ourselves at our word. If we think this problem is as bad as it is, then if you have a fortune that you've accumulated, I said in the speech, there can be no greater return on your investment than protecting our civilization. To academics, look, it's very difficult in the education sector. They feel like partisans behind enemy lines, as I said. But they got to keep going. They got to keep going. In the media, we have plenty of work to do, and there's plenty we can do. I think actually new media is the one thing that is exciting in terms of opportunities. It's an opportunity to shift the narrative and to set the agenda. And for politicians, it's very clear to me that the stories we've been discussing here at ARC and the narratives and culture, these things are very important. But it's very, very difficult to persuade young people to believe in conserving a society that does not work for them. And I was at a Peter Thiel lecture in Oxford a few days ago. He made this point. Douglas Murray's been making this point. I've been making this point. Young people don't have a stake in their society. It's difficult. It's very, very difficult. I'm 40. It's difficult for my generation to get in the house of ladder. It's difficult to buy or even rent a house that's big enough to have a family in. And when you have that sort of situation, you have to be honest and say, why on earth would young people be conservative? And that's my message to conservatives always, from day one. I think we talked about this in the very first interview you did with me. I've been saying this for years.
Yeah.